What is up, guys? Robert here, bringing you another video for Friday, September 19th, 2025. So let's get started. Today I bring you some of the top stories, a lot of them about Sony's financial report that they just released just recently. So we're going to go over a lot of that, as well as probably like one JRPG news I got today, and yeah, that's pretty much it. So let's get started and talk about Tencent. If you remember, they had been recently sued by Sony, and now Tencent is firing back, saying that the case should be dismissed because Sony is trying to claim that Horizon is not like any other game in the world, and that's their own kind of type of IP, and Tencent is just ripping them off. But according to a recent report, Tencent was saying that their game kind of looks more like Enslaved Odyssey of the West. If you remember that game from PS3, the way that looks and things like that, Tencent is trying to say that their game models more after that. So according to Tencent, they are saying that, you know, Sony is trying to say that the popular culture and declare it that Horizon is their domain, even though that there's been like stuff like that before. And so the article goes on to say that Tencent motion to dismiss accuses Sony of attempting to fence off a well-trodden corner of popular culture and declare it Sony's exclusive domain. So Tencent's position is that Sony claims that Horizon Zero Dawn is like no fictional world created before or since, is contradicted by the game developer, and represents an impermissible monopoly on the genre conventions. So yeah, so we're seeing a lawsuit kind of going back and forth with Tencent, trying to say that, you know, Sony can't capture that IP and say it's theirs, when other games are kind of similar to it, like the art director for Tencent points out Odyssey of the West. So yeah, we'll see how that plays out, whether or not Sony is going to be able to win this lawsuit, or if it's just going to be something that, you know, just fades away and it's dismissed. So we don't know about that one. So going with the corporate report for 2025, PlayStation discussed that it continues to want to push its live service games. So we saw that Sony talked about, they cited in this report, games like MLB The Show, Helldivers 2, Gran Turismo, and Destiny 2 as examples. They called out that it's important for their business going forward to be able to have live service games. So, you know, Bungie is starting to work on games like Marathon, but one game that they didn't talk about was the Fair games. So remember, that one was starting to slowly get developed by Jade Raymond's studio, Haven Studios, but she ended up leaving, and it's, you know, slowly in development. But remember, recently Sony talked about how they wanted to have 12 live service games a year, and then they cut that down to half, and then they said that they kind of want to look into it and see how it's going to be for their strategy. So it sounds like that they still want to push live service games, and it hopes that that is going to make them money in the future. So we'll see. Now, Sony just recently released a new update, a patch, 25.06-12.00.00, rolled out live just this week for the DualSense. It allows you to get better pairing for certain Bluetooth devices, as well as power saving mode. So if you want to be able to activate power saving mode, here are the steps. So go to your settings, system, select power saving for games, turn on use power saving, and select which games you want to use power saving. So right now they tested it, same with like Death Stranding 2 and things like that. So definitely try that out, see what power saving mode is going to look like. Is the life of your controller going to be any better than it was before. We'll find out with this new update, but Sony's rolling out power saving mode and better connection, so see how that works for better pairing for your controller. So one of the big stories I had just recently this week talks about again, Sony's corporate report that they released, and Sony started talking about that the percentage of games that they had for physical copies was only 3%, which I'll show you the breakdown again, but which was interesting to me that if only 3% of what they're bringing in for the revenue is only physical games. Now, the way that they broke it down is only really physical games of what first party Sony games, and then the percentage of games that they brought in from third party revenue. So that's how they calculated it. So on PlayStation, you could relatively say, yeah, maybe it's not as popular as it is, say, during the PS4 era, but the number's a little bit skewed, because if we'll give it like a 5%, so 5% is coming in for just physical games, but it's not really saying physical games through all the PlayStation games for everybody who makes games for them. It's just only within the Sony ecosystem. I think it might be a little bit skewed, but what I thought was great was, I mean, they brought in $900 million from physical games. So even though it's 3% of their revenue, they are still bringing in money from having physical games. So a lot of what this report started to talk about was digital games started to dominate the market this console life cycle within at least the last year. And what you started to see was Sony started making more, I believe it was about 29% of their profit started coming from DLCs. So it makes you wonder why they want to push things like live service games and, you know, add-on content for their games, because they make a lot of money for it. And so I guess the model that they want to do is they want to continue keeping you know, going digital so they can make more money. And you know, I made a video on this this week, and you know, let me know your thoughts. Do you like digital? I know some people say digital is convenient because you can just load up your console, find the game you want to play, and go, rather than having to search for your disc and then hope your disc don't break and go through all the motions, and then, you know, make sure that your collection looks good while you're still, you know, trying to play your game. I don't know. I like physical, but I can see the argument between digital. I do play a lot of digital games on my console. When I get the chance, I like to just download them and, you know, play it. Like I'm currently playing Borderlands, and just be able to just download it, play it, and not have to find my copy, which, you know, is good. So there are some points to it, but it's sad to see that physical copies are slowly starting to go. So as you know, I'm a physical game collector, so I like all those. But as we start to jump into like the, you know, Nintendo Switch with what they're doing with their game cartridges, who knows? Maybe this, it's going to be an all digital era within the next 10 years. I don't know, but hopefully we get to see some good news for physical game copies. So to continue to push on for the Sony corporate report, they did say that they wanted to double down on single player games, which in my opinion, I think that is probably their best route to go. Now, one of their most popular games we know is Spider-Man 2. That sold them well amount of copies. I believe it was 11 million that they sold at the time. But doubling down on single player experience, I think in my opinion is great. I like single player games. It does make them money, but I think more people enjoy that route because they can go and play single player games as long as they want, when they can, and, you know, enjoy the single player experience instead of having to feel like, especially if you're a trophy hunter, feel like you're forced to complete every aspect. You know, I got to do this online stuff, I got to do this co-op stuff, I got to make sure I can communicate with the people around me to be able to make sure I can get this going. And, you know, so doubling down, because Sony has some good single player games. Like Ghost of Tsushima, Spider-Man, God of War, Astro Bot. So you think if they continue to double down on games, Horizon, Last of Us, like you can go on and name a bunch of them that they have, and if they double down on that, they can make single player games much stronger. So it's good to see in their financial report that they said that they're not straying away from that, but I'm hoping that they make more than 12 like they want to do live service games. But it would be interesting to see if it is true that this Wolverine game that is supposed to come on the next State of Play is going to be as good as like Spider-Man. But I'm hoping that they do double down and start to make more games like that. Earlier in the segment, I started talking about, I only had one JRPG news. Now, I know it's for a game that everybody's probably pretty much played, but Final Fantasy VII Remake, recently they announced that it's coming out for the Switch 2 in January of next year. But the fascinating thing is that they added cheats to this game now. So the cheats that they added, you can get max attack, 9,999. You could get max health every single time, as well as you can get, you can also be able to get infinite items on certain items as well. So my thought though is they're doing this for the Switch, which is mainly what they promoted, as well as it's coming out for Xbox. But do you think that they're gonna do this for maybe do a patch for the next for the PS5 versions and help people who haven't been able to maybe beat Remake, or even if they're going to do it for Rebirth, haven't beat that, if you think that they're going to do that to help simply help them with the trophies? Because I know a lot of, they added the VR, and so the VR is tough, but a lot of people having to do the VR missions and can't coordinate it sometimes, it might help them out to be able to add these cheats. But it got me thinking, what are your thoughts about Final Fantasy adding cheats to a game like this? Now, I know they did it for 8, and I use them in 8 because it's more convenient for me to get through all the trophies and the way the trophies were set up. It was much easier to use. But in a game like Final Fantasy VII, that's more of an action-based type, what are your thoughts on that? Do you think that they shouldn't add cheats on, cheats for the game because it takes away the experience? Or do you think that it's actually something good? I think it's good in this case because this game came out 5 years ago, but it helps just getting through the single player experience if you want to be able to do that and not have to grind so much, and you can learn the story to catch up before the third one comes out. So I think that's pretty good. I'm getting my copy. I want to be able to play it on Switch 2. Be interested to see what it's like, if performance is good, what the cheats feel like, infinite items. Curious to know what they're gonna do for that, if it's just like potions, or can I have different accessories? I don't know. We'll find out when it comes out, but I'm super excited for that. Hey, and you know what? That's what I got for today. I thank you guys so much for sticking around and watching. My last video, I talked about how physical games may be a thing of the past, so definitely check that out. And I go over the report a little bit, as I discussed here. 3% of physical sales in Sony's report is what physical games are for them. So definitely check that out, as well as I have a weekly podcast if you want to take a look at that with Dark Knight 316. We talk about gaming culture, gaming news, just like how gaming was intended to do. We want to give our thoughts and opinions on different things that we see, and react to maybe things that we'll see live or we haven't seen yet. So definitely check out that video. It's going to be linked in the description, as well as we just started, if you are a football and wrestling fan, we just started another weekly podcast called Tackles and Takedown, where we give our predictions on our football picks, maybe go over a little bit of that week's games, as well as different wrestling events and reactions to that. So yeah, that's what we all got in store for you today. Thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate every one of you guys sticking around. God bless you guys, and remember, keep gaming. Thanks, guys.